think we are good. Let's see if my microphone is working. I should be live. Let me know if you can hear me, guys. Where's this thing? Annoying. Should be live. Let's see what's happening. Live and direct from the 1.6. Ooh. View channel. Live. It says I'm live. Then you guys, looks like there's a couple people watching. Let me know if you can hear me. I mean, my audio looks like it's audioing. Let's give it a minute too. I need to make sure. I need someone to confirm that they can hear me, or else I'm not going to be able to do this. I mean, my audio looks like it's audioing. It looks like it's working. And my view. Well, let's get started. I think we have a few people watching. All right, we got people. All right. Can you confirm that you hear me? I don't know if I'm not hearing a confirmation that you can hear me. Is it, do I need to fix something? I'm not seeing confirmation that voice is. Can you hear me? Can you hear my audio? Ba 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 ba. Oh man. I mean, it looks like it works on my end, but I'm not getting anyone saying that they can hear me. Okay. Good. Thank you. All right, let's get started. Enough preliminary. So today I want to talk about something that I think is probably overlooked and is probably underappreciated in the little world that I live in, that many of us live in, which is the sort of classical, traditional oil painting, drawing, academic, all this stuff, whatever you want to call it. We like the old stuff. I like the old stuff, the old paintings. But something that I think is missing in today's art education, to a degree, is a focus on the concept of line and the power of line, what we can do with line, how much we can express with line. I think many students, and I think I was the same way, sort of assume, we all start with line. We start drawing cartoons. We start drawing, mostly cartoons and, drawing logos or whatever, like your favorite brand's logo. I used to draw like skateboard brand logos all over my binders and things. This is all done with line. And it had this, I had this sense that, okay, I get line. I need to understand light and shadow. I need to understand rendering. That's the thing that I need. And I kind of abandoned line for some time, thinking I need to get that sense of realism. I need to get that, lines don't exist in nature. We all know that. But it wasn't until I started reading Harold Speed's book, The Practice and Science of Drawing. which we do talk about in a previous lesson, which should be linked in the description, where I talk about the mass drawing side of his sort of theory in his book. But today we're going to talk about the line side of the theory, which I think is just as important. So let's kind of jump into it. We're going to take a look at a bunch of drawings, which is something I like to do. And we got to get out of the this thing, line, herald, speed. All right, let's pull this up. Let's make sure chat is visible. And feel free to answer or ask any questions while we're taking a look at these things. And I will try to answer them for you. So first thing I want to look at is Harold Speed's drawings themselves. So I think it's important, really, if you're going to get advice from someone, I think they need to be able to draw. I think they need to be able to do the thing that we're looking to learn from them. And it's not like there are exceptions, of course. Like there can be good advice from somebody that doesn't know how to draw, but I think overall you're going to get better advice from somebody that can draw, that does have the eye, than someone that doesn't. And Harold Speed could definitely draw. These are there's a powerful drawing. Looks like it was done pretty quickly. I believe this was done as a demo for one of his classes. This is I think a lot of these Harold Speed drawings that we see online are done in sort of red chalk like this, and are exceptionally beautiful. And we can start to see what we're going to be talking about is this idea of line. You can see the contour, these beautifully designed contours. This beautiful line quality. There's a softer line here, darker line here. The softer line creating a softer edge, pushing that edge back in space, bringing this one forward. This beautifully elegant long neck here. So yeah, we can see that Harold Speed can draw. This is maybe not the best drawing, but it looks like it was done very rapidly. And we're calling this a line drawing. These are I definitely call these line drawings. The reason we were calling these line drawings is because they're made up mostly of line. They're either contour lines or hatch marks. Now there is a little bit of smudging here and there, but if we removed all the line from this, it would just be a meaningless smudge. It wouldn't mean anything. The lines are holding this drawing together. All made up of lines, all made up of hatch marks. Really beautiful contour here. I mean, maybe not the best drawing ever, but pretty good. You know, Harold Speed was no schlep. This is a great drawing right here. Really nice hand drawing. So, what does Harold Speed say about line? So he talks about it as distinct from mass. Mass being a two-dimensional sort of visual space. Where's my give me a second here. Where's that contextual thing? So I can draw. Oops. Give me a sec here. That should be pretty good. How do I get the size a little bit bigger? There we go. That's a nice looking brush. Oh, what was that? Wow. I think I zoomed in a little too much there. There we go. Jeez. All right. I need to zoom out here. Something went wild. Give me a second here. What is this doing? I have to go all the way back to design to just move this thing. Here we go. Does it hear me talking crap about it right now? It gives me a little questionnaire. There we go. That's a little better. All right. So we have line. We have mass. Mass is our visual field. It's like it's the visual information as photons hit our eyes and are processed by our brain. So when we squint, we're seeing mass. We're seeing mass of light and shadow. Light and shadow is mass. Impressionism is mass. So we're going to think of this as 2D. Wow, that's a bad 2. We're going to think of this as visual. Okay, this is the worst writing ever, but what are you going to do? And then line, we're going to think of this as the conceptual sort of our feeling of a thing. So my hand here, if you can see my hand in space, the edge of my hand, I can feel it. And this is something very interesting that Harold Speed talks about, is line is connected to our sense of touch. I have the iPhone here, the end of the iPhone. The iPhone ends here. Everything else in the world begins here. So this is iPhone in space. It's not integrated into this basically almost invisible sort of shadow here where it's all integrated. Visually, there's no edge right here, but I can feel it, so I know there's an edge there. So it's a very interesting connection that Speed makes, is that, and I think it's definitely true, is that line is connected to our sense of touch. So line is a 3D concept. It is a conceptual concept, not visual, because we don't, as we all know, there are no lines in nature, right? I mean, there probably are. It depends on what you mean by line in a lot of sense. Like, how sort of fractal do you want to get with it? Like, the lines on the road are lines, but if you look at them closer, they're just long rectangles, right? But like, there's something like a line that's existing where my eyelid meets the sort of the hood of my brow here. Visually, that I perceive that as a line. So we perceive lines, so it's not like they don't entirely exist, but we'll keep it conceptual, keep it simple. So we have lines that are 3D, conceptual, mass, 2D, visual. Form is a conceptual idea. Form is really something like an extrapolation of lines. So if we have, this is going to be really janky looking, but if we have a circle here, all of a sudden if we start creating some lines around the circle, we start to get this sense of form. The more lines we add, the more form we get. So form is a conceptual idea. It's something that's happening in our brain. The visual counterpart to form is light and shadow. And I think it's so brilliant to break these things apart, and this helped me so much in understanding what to focus on, and understanding if I'm having problems, what I need to start practicing. So what happens if we're focusing specifically on mass? We're focused specifically on the visual input that's coming into our brain and copying that as faithfully as we can. We can get this very good sense of breadth and this good sense of light and form, this good sense of atmosphere, but it can often be kind of mumbled and unarticulate, disarticulated, not clear. There isn't any clarity in the important parts. It's all just kind of fuzzy and just blobby, you know. On the other hand, if we're overly focused on line, we can get that cartoony look. We can get this artificial or plastic look if we're overly form concentrated. We can just get like maybe an it gets kind of boring. It's over explained. Like poetry is something that is under explained. There's mystery there. The opposite of poetry is like a stop sign. A stop sign is very clear. There's no mystery there. It's a red thing that says stop. There's zero mystery. It's not interesting. Mystery comes from where there's a little bit of something to be understood by the viewer, a little bit of mystery, a little bit of lack of clarity. So when we're running into like oftentimes we do at first start running into these like our paintings, our drawings are cartoony, they're hard, the edges are too hard, all these things. This may mean that we need to start focusing on some mass drawing. Another brilliant thing that Harold Speed does is that what he recommends for mass drawing is actually black and white oil paint. Which makes a lot of sense because oil paint is perfectly made. It's a perfect medium for working in mass. It's quick. You get there really fast. It has a full range of value. And you have a range of brushes that you can use. You can use big brushes, small brushes. With drawing, with dry media like a pencil, charcoal, we're limited to a stick, you know, with a little tiny point on it. This is not particularly efficient at working out mass. Like this line, it's going to take forever to fill in a mass. But what it's really good at, as you can see with like these digital representations, it's perfectly good at making line. So line is about articulation. It's about training our ability to articulate a form, articulate an object as clearly as possible. And the more we can understand objects in space and articulate them purely with line, the better our mass paintings, our realistic mass paintings that we open up the form a little bit, don't have it so closed down, are going to be. And it's a much more efficient way of drawing. Like I think the way of drawing where we're kind of just like filling in all the little holes of the paper there's a lot of time spent not learning. It's just sort of doing nothing. Where if we focus our attention when we're drawing, and for people like me who I've always just loved oil painting and painting a lot more than I love drawing. It's not that I don't love drawing. I just love oil painting more. And if I can spend time in when I'm drawing being as efficient as possible, I'd much rather do that than be spending a lot of time just filling in a background with a sharp piece of carbon, you know. Let me take a look at if we have questions. My chat has been out of the window here for a second. This live will be saved. Yeah, it'll be saved. So no questions, good. Yeah, feel free to ask questions though for anyone that is newly arrived. We're talking about Harold Speed. We're talking about the undervalued idea of line. So let's take a look a little bit more at some drawings again. As you can see down here, we have some Sargent drawings, some very, very beautiful Sargent drawings. Harold Speed was very clearly influenced by Sargent. When Harold Speed was at the Royal Academy in London, I think it's in London, Sargent was a sort of visiting professor. almost like exactly the time that Harold Speed was there as a student, and he would go into. I mean, I guess the agreement the sergeant made was that I'll do this for a month in the summer. I'll come there and open a studio. Students can come watch me paint, but I don't really talk. So they would just watch him silently paint. And I think a lot of them, from what I understand, they got a lot out of it. Just watching someone paint, it kind of shows the value of that. There's a lot of value in just watching someone paint. But taking a look at Sargent here, we can see an example of, it's not a purely line drawing for sure. I think we can call this a line and mass drawing. This is something that I've heard that at least described by Richard Schmid, line and mass. He would use that as an underpainting or a starting method. It was line and mass start. I think we can very squarely call this line and mass, but there is a ton of line going on in here, a ton of contour that is holding this together. This isn't being held together by a full range of value, a full rendering that's making this this drawing work here. It's being held together by line. If we took these lines out, it would be a smudgy mess. Similar, very similar here. There's almost no value in the face here. This is almost the value in the face here, or the articulation in the face here is purely line, with just a little bit of smudge here and there. But we can start to see some of this incredible articulation that we can so quickly. I don't know if I can quickly do it, especially with this app. Excuse me. Oh, see if I can go a little lighter. Oh man, this pencil is so ridiculous. I may need to update a driver or something, because this, look at that thing. Well, anyway, let's say this was actually looking like this. Look how much quicker we can articulate something with line than if we were going in there and trying to render all this out, get the entire sense of form, thinking about the ball shape of the eye and its influence on it, rendering all this out. This is going to take an hour to render this eye out, versus if we just articulate it with line. Cool drawing. Kind of looks like Ryan Gosling a little bit, yeah. Another thing that what's his name, Harold Speed, talks about is, and this is so important, is the importance of a hatch mark direction. So we can see here, maybe I need to make this a little bit brighter. In the background here, he has what Harold Speed classifies as pretty obviously these diagonal hatch marks, and these are done by a right-handed person. This is what you do if you're right-handed. If you're left-handed, they would comfortably go that way. And he designates these sort of diagonal marks as atmospheric hatch marks. These are sort of they're not tied to form in any way. Whereas, let's see if there's an example here. We have a little bit of an example right here. These hatches coming down the nose. These would be called hatch marks going along the form. And he talks about hatch marks going along the form as creating strength. And hatch marks going across the form creating softness. I don't see anything very clearly going across the form in this example, but I'll look out for it so I can try to show you. I think it's a little bit of a stretch to say that 100% if it's going along the form it creates strength, and if it's going across the form it means softness. But I can say pretty assuredly that the diagonal marks are creating this unity, and this unity creates an atmosphere. And these are sort of agnostic to form. These are just emulating light effects more than anything. We see more of that diagonal hatch mark used as the sort of that general sort of unifying atmospheric marks. Then we have this this alternation to it, and this is the design choice for whatever reason to make it possibly to make the face stand out, the rendering in the face to stand out as a different material and a different object. Such a beautiful double portrait here. We can see when we have two portraits, it can be difficult to create a hierarchy. You know, we have that American Gothic painting, and it kind of broke all the rules of this, but we had like the one guy standing and then the wife standing right there. It creates zero hierarchy, though. It's just like it's one object then another object. It can be pretty boring if not done very decisively like that painting. So we need to create a hierarchy, and what Sargent has done so masterfully is created this sort of lower contrast for the lady in the background here, pushing her back in space, but also overlapping her behind the child here to create a hierarchy. What we got here with the looks like Aaron Taylor Johnson. I'm not sure I know who that is. Aaron Taylor Johnson. All right. Yeah, I can see that. All right. We got this older gentleman here. Let's see if there's a across the form idea. I'm not really seeing anything super clear here. All right, taking a look at his sketch for I think Madame Gautreau, or Madame X. This is an insane sketch here. What he's doing here is, it looks like it's almost just one line that's creating this outline here. If it was or not, I'm not totally sure. But it looks like it was done very quickly. If you've ever tried to draw a profile like this that quickly, I think you understand how difficult that can be. Such an accurate draftsman, but you can see his command of line is God level, you know? All right, a little more when we zoom in here. Look at this really beautiful articulation here around the face. Now these, I'm sure these drawings were done very quickly. Definitely like an hour or two, I'd imagine. I really wish this pencil worked a little bit better, but it's gonna be what it is. Like I was saying, if we removed all of these marks, all of this little bit of articulation here, we just have like a smudgy mess. So this isn't the realism of this drawing isn't coming from this full range of value and like core shadows and cast shadows and all this. What's holding it together is this this linear structure here, this linear layer on top. Another just insane line drawing here of Madame X. I mean, he's getting the this sense of perspective here, where her head is tilted away from us a little bit here. So we're getting this sort of he's nailing this perspective, which is a tough perspective to get, even if you have a lot of time. Just like, man, this is very humbling. Sargent is. We have this sort of plane change right here on the side of the head. Another plane change right there. Anyway, to get that so effortlessly is, you know, he was like just one of those geniuses that, you know, are just a handful in a generation, a handful in a century, I would say. So taking a look at, so we've looked at Sargent. Let's go back in space a little bit more, back in time a little bit more, and look at the like the true sort of fathers or founders, or the people that really brought line into Western art more than anything, in a way that created still a sort of sense of realism. This wire has just been like on my head. So of course we have like Da Vinci here, just absolutely gorgeous. This appears to be a silver point. We can see that same thing Speed is talking about with those diagonal lines, unifying everything together. It looks like, if this is not a flipped image, I can't tell if this is the correct orientation for this image, but it appears a left-handed person is doing this. So we all know that Da Vinci was like sort of ambidextrous. He probably could have done it either way, but almost all hatch marks here really are being held together with this this diagonal mark here. This diagonal like sort of hatch collection here. Another thing with line that we haven't really spoken of is this this idea of construction, or this idea of finding our measurements. It's again another conceptual idea. It's not something we see. We obviously don't see these lines in nature. This is an overlay that we're applying over it, as if we had like a what are those, like Google, I don't know, or if we had like a brain implant that enhanced our vision. You know, what's that, AR type stuff? You'd be adding these lines to start seeing, you know, these the relationships, the connections, the measurements. So they don't exist in nature, but they can help us, and these lines will help us get there. It's a little bit of a different concept than what I'm talking about very much today, but nonetheless, I wanted to show that. It's one of my favorite drawings of all time, is this Raphael. Just absolutely off the charts. So much breadth and so much just life in the drawing. It's hard to use enough hyperbole to describe it, and done with so little. I believe it was done very quickly. This doesn't look like a very a long drawing. Like we see these marks were done very rapidly. Again, you can kind of see this this overarching, unifying, diagonal hatch marks that are kind of holding it together. There isn't a lot of like sort of cross hatching in this example, so like form-based hatching, which I imagine is a speed thing. I imagine it's faster. If you only have so much time, it's going to be a lot faster to work in it with mostly diagonal hatches to hold it together. God, that's such a good drawing. It's crazy. Another Raphael. Now, in this example, we are seeing hatching, and we can talk about this a little bit more. What's annoying is I need this pencil. I like that. I wish that contextual menu showed up when I had the interface hidden. Alright, this thing is annoying. So we're seeing this going down the form here. This is sort of apparently creating strength. We have these sort of going across the form of this this like sort of fold right here below the chin. We have these going, sometimes it's hard to sort of determine, is it across or is it down the form? I would call this across the form. So this is apparently creating softness, at least according to Harold Speed. And these are in a sort of rudimentary way describing the form very subtly, and they're sort of they are working in tandem with the neutral diagonal marks. These neutral marks are kind of happening overall to create a sense of atmosphere and a sense of unification. And in a few key spots, he's adding some cross contour hatching to really liven up and accentuate the form. I believe this is also, yeah, this is also Raphael. I just think a really beautiful example to see. A lot of searching lines here, long, elegant searching lines. We have another Raphael, very similar. This looks like it was done with a left-handed person, so I'm not sure. Yeah, it's not. It hasn't been flipped apparently. He may have just hatched the other way. Now, of course, we have you know, Michelangelo, the Libyan Sibyl. I don't know. I mean, who hasn't done a? If you haven't done a study of this, I don't know. You're missing out. I mean, there's so much to learn from this drawing here. But we can see again more of that that hatching understanding. There's mostly this this comfortable diagonal, and then in a few places we have a sort of alternation happening. This is going kind of across the form here. This is going along the length of the form of the deltoid. This is going a little bit along the length of the trapezoid right here. Yeah, Michelangelo, out of control. Now, this is an example of one of the more highly rendered sort of Renaissance paintings that I've seen, which is another, apparently, Michelangelo. A little more smudging going on here. But even with the smudging and the rendering, we do see still this hatching taking place, a little bit of hatching along the form of the hat, helping us create that illusion of form. Helping him, I should say. I mean, the is really just an excuse to talk about drawings, because I love taking a look at these drawings here. Rembrandt, of course, another master of line, but a master of line in his own way. And if you can see the, take a look at this example of everyone here. We have Sargent, we have these great masters of all time. We can see that Sargent's style is coming through in this. This is Sargent's. We can see it even at this tiny little thumbnail view here. So clearly Sargent style, so clearly Rembrandt style, so clearly, you know, the three Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the freaking Leonardo, Raphael, Michelangelo. We can see that they are all very clearly themselves here. And I think there is this connection between studying line and our own sense of expression. It's cultivating our sense of expression. It's cultivating our sense of poetry. It's cultivating our sense of, like I said earlier, how we articulate, how someone articulates a nose, how Leonardo here articulates a nose versus how Rembrandt is articulating a nose. Very different philosophies happening here. Versus how, you know, well, let's not look at that because we're talking about line. how Raphael here is articulating a line, how articulating a nose. Very different philosophies, very different people, you know. I mean, and then now looking at Sargent as an extreme, like, couldn't be more different than Leonardo, couldn't be more different than Raphael in his articulation here. Now, in Rembrandt's case, there's something interesting going on, which is we have some cross-contour activities happening. But in a sense, some of them some of them are following the form. Some are going across and along the form. And then many of them are this sort of mashup of cross-contour. It's almost like wireframes, 3D wireframes that are overlapping so much they become almost opaque. And what he's doing is creating this sense of this strong sense of atmosphere with line, because Rembrandt is much more of a visual painter. He's on the visual side of the spectrum here. When we talk about line versus mass, absolutely Rembrandt is on the mass side, very squarely on the mass side of things. So he's using his line work as a vehicle for creating mass, with just a little bit of that quality of line describing some of the form. But even the contours of his face here are getting lost without a very strong outline. Look at this this edge he's creating here along the chin. And I don't think there's hair on this chin here, so this is just, he's creating the softness here. He doesn't want a strong line along the chin here, where Leonardo definitely does. Leonardo is definitely a linear painter. So he's thinking of the objects in space. He's thinking of it's almost like a philosophical idea of the of each individual, each person, each thing is individual. There isn't this oneness. There is like a distinction. There's a soul, a singular person. You know, then there's another singular person. There's almost like a religious idea to this form in space, object in space, line, form thinking. Whereas there's almost a more secular, scientific, or even maybe Buddhist view when we start talking about mass, because there's this interrelation between everything. Everything is sort of connected. Everything is diffused. It's hard to describe exactly where one thing ends and another thing begins. We're all just this like sea of atoms floating in a sea of atoms, and it's hard to distinguish one from the other. And that Buddhist idea that the self is an illusion, that we are separate from this sort of sea of whatever, life, the sea of everything that exists, the existence. Like if I cut off my arm, am I any less myself? You know, that kind of idea. So theory I just kind of was thinking about this morning. I don't know. Let me know what you think about it. I think there's something there though. It's almost like the mass. Like think of how the Impressionists exploded right at a time where science became a big thing, you know, and Charles Darwin was doing his thing, and the light of optics was coming into play. And the idea of idealized figures, these forms in space, kind of lost their prominence, you know, and painters like Bouguereau and Ong were sort of losing fashion. They were coming out of fashion, and this sort of this purely mass-based, visual-based form of painting called Impressionism exploded, you know. And speaking of Bouguereau and Ong, I see them as like, on a continuum. Ong coming before Bouguereau, but if we take a look at this is a Bouguereau. The one on the left here is Ong. The one on the right here is Bouguereau. You can see there's a very clear idea of how both of these artists adored line. They were exceptionally line focused. There's almost no one that did it better than them. They both look to Raphael as a beacon of the highest example of what line can do. But an argument could be made that they took it even further. I'm a bit partial to Ong myself, but I mean, Bouguereau was no schlep. The guy was an animal. Here's an interesting Bouguereau I hadn't seen before. It looks almost modern, I guess, with the hair down. You almost never see a woman with the hair down like that in the 19th century. But you know, at first it looks not even that great of a drawing, but you come up and look close, you start to see these examples of articulation that you would only see from a master. You don't see this from amateurs. There's this very clear articulation. And again, look at it. It's made up of lines. This is a line drawing. It's made up entirely of line. Just gorgeous little sketches. These are probably tiny, like 6 by 8 inch little drawings here. You know, if I could, I wish I could find a better picture of this. I think this might be from the Barg. Now that I'm thinking about it, this might be from the part 2 of the Barg book. Just love this, whatever it is, though. I'd like to see a little bit closer. Now, Ong is where, oh man, I mean, this is what I'm talking about when he took line to like another level. This is just, and and again, I want to bring up the idea that, you know, as beginners, I think we think that we understand line. We think that we've got this, but we need to understand rendering. But I'd encourage you to continue studying line as much as you can. I think it's going to make you a better painter, and I think it's something that was really missing in the academic, classical realism, whatever we want to call it, world that we're living in, is that something is missing, and I think it's line. I think that it's that articulation. We don't see anybody drawing like this anymore, or we don't see anyone drawing like this. Like this is coming from a sense of purely an idealized sense of what we're looking at, but it's also, I think we get there through iteration with line. Even as many people that are trying to paint like Sargent, which there's tons of them, there's no one coming like this. There's no one painting like this. There's no one that can draw like this. I just don't see it. Like in a quick sketch like this, I just am seeing nobody doing this. And my theory is that this our fascination with rendering form, which I am fascinated with. I'm not saying we shouldn't be. I'm just saying if we could spend a little more time on line, our design of contour, our design of shape with line, there's something we can bring out of it that can be new and exciting. Just want to spend a little more time appreciating Ong here, because I think he is underappreciated. I think he could be looked at a little bit more. Let's see what we got. Let me take a look at the questions here. Hey, Fer. Hey, how's it going? What's going on? What's going on, Home Skillet? I haven't heard that in a while. I haven't seen a lot of Bouguereau sketches. Yeah, they're worth looking at. Oh, there's a part 2 to Barg. Oh yeah, here's the thing about the Barg book is there's 3 parts. And part 2 is Barg's master copies of a lot of time, and I feel almost ashamed of myself that I don't have Holbein in this presentation here, because he squarely belongs in a presentation of linear focus mastery of drawing. But I didn't want to. I realized it late in the process, and it's just gonna be too much. I think too much looking at stuff and me yapping about the same kind of concept over and over again. But Holbein belongs in there. But anyway, part 2 of the Barg book has a bunch of basically master copy etchings or whatever, lithographs that Barg did. He did a number from Bouguereau. He did some from like, I don't know how to say it, but Hippolyte Flandrin. He did a ton. Most of them, like the majority he took from a single person was Holbein, the younger. A lot of them, unfortunately, in the book are really small, and that kind of sucks. So, like, they don't have them all full size like in the part 1. It would be nice to have some of these a little bit bigger, but I would also highly recommend if you want to look at line. I think the most valuable part of the entire Barg book is part 3. Part 3, Barg U. Where we have these incredible figure drawings. And these may look so basic and simple, but I'm telling you, until you've studied this, and I've had many students like have the same reaction. They go, looks kind of basic. When you start studying this, you realize how minimalistic, perfectly minimalistic these drawings are, how effortless his line is, how he's doing this sort of double, these double lines to create softer lines, these thinner lines to create softer edges. I mean, darker lines to create darker edges. The weight that he has on these figures in such a simplified form, just truly worth every minute of studying these things. Simplicity, it just can't be understated. How to simplify the complexity of what we're looking at and still create something interesting and good. He really nailed it here, I think. And you don't have to spend a lot of time. These, spend like less than 2 hours for sure. And I think there's a lot you can get out of studying these figures, especially if you don't have figure drawing capabilities around you. I would study these 100%. So anyway, let's get back to what we were chatting about here. And then I feel like a little bit of shame trying to show my light and shadow and this sort of realism. So how can I sort of merge what I like with sort of the drawing aspect or the line aspect? And so far I've come up with this sort of idea of sort of powdered charcoal and drawing with graphite into the powder charcoal, and then articulating with ink line, the sort of the what do you call it? Like what's that word? It's like how you the definitiveness of line, the boldness of it, or ink line, is very clear. Like you only get really one shot, and in a lot of senses, is training as how to paint. So many times we're called upon to get this perfect brushstroke right in the right place, and training this with I'm using like they're like Copic markers, kind of like light gray. There's different gray Copic markers, so that some of them are I like the gray ones because they match the sort of the graphite color pretty well. And there's like those little fine point micron type ones that Copic makes as well in those light grays, and they can get really really fine, so you can get this super fine detail, and you're articulating without rendering everything. So these take a couple hours, like 3 hours or so, instead of like instead of spending like 20, 30, 40, 50 hours on a portrait. which I'm not saying doesn't have value. It absolutely does. But I'm saying we're going to get more value, I think, out of working in a way that's a little more of a hybrid here. I think I kind of over modeled in the eyes a little bit here, but anyway, we can see, we can start to articulate things, practice articulation, practice our boldness. There's a little bit of articulation happening here. This one's a little bit softer, not a lot of boldness. A little more boldness here in the sternocleidomastoid sort of tendon there. Sorry if this the screen is moving around a ton here, but we can play with ideas of the eyes are totally in shadow here, so I didn't put any ink in there. Just so that they stay in this sort of diffuse openness, and then pushing the line, pushing the contour around the edges here, especially towards the outside, making these thicker lines outside, sort of juxtapose with the softness within this face, making the softness in the face even softer. This is a demo for one of my online classes. Oh, by the way, online classes start this weekend, Saturday, Sunday. We have an indirect oil painting and Alla Prima oil painting classes, so check them out. Links in the description. So we can see here a little bit of this practice of articulation, this definitiveness in describing the contour. And there's always things that we could have done better. I feel like this ear could probably be pushed out a little bit, or something could be done with this ear. Who knows? Something off with the ear. There's always something off with the ear. So anyway, here's one more example. I guess this was in the thumbnail of the video, so I might as well show this. This was a study. This is actually a study from a sculpture. So, but this is done mostly in line, and I think we do our hatch marks, and there's a little bit of smudge here and there, but everything is held together with line. It's done pretty quickly. This is sort of the lay-in version of it. This is what you would see sort of before the version down here, before we sort of darken some of that shadow underneath, unifying that. So I think that's about it for this little presentation. It's something I like to talk about, and it's something I like, I want to, bring to more people, and sort of do like a little bit of a mini book report on Harold Speed, which I think is definitely worth reading. It takes a little bit to digest if you're not like a technical reader. It's just like, it's definitely not the worst of the old books. It's not as old as a lot of the old books either. It was written in like the 1920s or something. So its language isn't so intense like Vanderpool. If you ever try to read Vanderpool, it's indecipherable, and I can't read it. I just have no ability to read Vanderpool. Some other guys that are pretty easy to read are like Solomon J. Solomon, and what's the name? John Collier. These are kind of like the three best painters that created books that are legible, or that are in English that I can read. I don't know if I'm sure there's. I imagine there's got to be some instruction books from like Italians or Spanish or whoever that could be pretty good. But what was I gonna say? No, anyway, I don't know. Anyone have any questions? Let's hear it. It's been quiet on the questions this one. I know I've been yapping. I'm down to just yap a little bit more. Bridgman books are impossible to read. Yeah, they're tough. They're they're nowhere near as tough as Vanderpool, though. If you've ever, oh my god, they're just nothing like Vanderpool. It's just like it's just trying way too hard. I want to see if we can pull up a Vanderpool, John Vanderpool. I think this would be in public domain by now. It hasn't been the entire time I've been. Maybe it is. Let's do a little mini look at old Vanderpool here. Below these retreating forms, that is, below the deep bony depression just above the inner corner of the eye and the convex muscle immediately above it, the eyeball, enveloped by the lids, presses slightly forward. So I kind of get that, what he's saying. I do get what he's saying there, but I have a lot of... there was a time where I'd read that and I have no idea what the hell was just read. But it's like the language here of inner, above, next to, above, under, right of, it takes, you have to like try to visualize it and put it all together. It's not great. And maybe there's nothing you can do. Maybe in trying to describe these things in a highly articulate way, you kind of have to talk like this. I'm not totally sure, but the eyeballs being considerably smaller than the cup from which they protrude cause the corners of the eye to set well within the border of the orbit, so that the outer corner is found step-like, well inside the plane of the temple. Step-like. The inner corner is step-like. What is it? I don't know what he means by that. He's talking about this outer corner here, as it is well within the plane of the temple. That's a very good point. Step-like, I don't know what he means there. Let's see here. Bridgman books. What are your favorite art books? Were people just smarter back then? Is a funny question, and no, they weren't. No, they were just trying too hard. I think there was just this habit of. If you've ever read, I've tried to read like William James, his Varieties of Spiritual Experience, and indecipherable. Like it was just, and it may have been like American English at the time, was they would use the entire thesis or thesaurus, which is I don't think is a sign of intelligence, it's a sign of arrogance, in my opinion. To be able to describe a complex subject in a way that's understandable, I think, is a sign of higher intelligence. I think Einstein even said something about that. So I think we can. I'm on Einstein's side here. Is that if you can't describe a complex subject in a way that more a higher degree of people can understand, then that's kind of on you. There's actually a sense that generally our IQ has gone up like 3 points per generation, which is kind of funny. It doesn't mean we're actually getting smarter. It just means that we are. It means that we are engaged in, at least in the Western world, we're engaged with mental activity a lot more than they were previously. So like our grandparents were working on farms and stuff, so they weren't working on mental tasks all the time, like emails and freaking, text messages and solving riddles and like video games and all this stuff. So we're constantly practicing these mental concepts so that when we do get in front of someone does end up taking an IQ test or whatever, we're just better at it. Yeah, they were snobs, but everybody's like, all artists are snobs, Everyone in the academic realm, there's always going to be the snobby academics, whether it's like actual, scholarly academics like William James, or if it's, like more artistic academics. There's going to be a sense of gatekeepy snobbery. I think part of the appeal of traditional ways of painting is sort of joining the ranks of these great minds and whatnot. Like I feel, or you can feel this connection to them. So that can very easily turn into a sense of superiority or something. If we're not careful, if someone is not being very skillful with their morals or whatever. Another person online says, "Man, I got to work on Saturday. Do you have any night class?" I don't have night classes, but the online classes are recorded for anyone that can attend live. There's a Saturday and a Sunday class. Kate asks, "Any tips on starting oil painting?" Just starting altogether. I think I don't know. Just jump into it. Just that's all. That's what I did. Just jump into it. Like, don't overthink it. Find a thing that you want to paint. Like if there's somebody that's I know it's like plugging my own stuff, but if you can follow along with somebody else painting the exact same thing as you, you're gonna have a better time, than just blindly following something or trying to paint something like from a reference or whatever. Picking the right reference is a lot of work, and it can be difficult. If you can work from life, that's kind of probably better. You can set up just a simple still life of something that isn't too mechanical. Like we don't want to paint like a still life. I mean, like an iPhone. We don't want to paint like a Wacom tablet here. We want something that has like an organicness to it. Even like a coffee mug is probably too perfectly cylindrical. So if you can get something that's like organic in a range of values, a lighter thing and a darker thing. Don't put roses or flowers or anything. It's one of the hardest things to paint. And just give it don't overthink it. Like the question, any tips on starting oil painting sounds like, and I am a classic overthinker. I have to I learn all the ways to do things before I do the thing. But that's why I'm encouraging you to just jump in and just start painting, get something out there, try to paint a sphere. I just can't visualize those texts. Yeah, they're a pain. Jordan Peterson comes to mind. Yeah. Well, I mean, IKEA's been around a while. Like so they were snob. Yeah, we talked about snobbery. Outer corner of the eye is step-like. Could mean that the corner of the top eyelid overlaps the corner of the bottom eyelid. That's a good point. I think that could be true. Step-like, but wouldn't that be stepping down? Like it would be more of like a corner. It would be more like a cornice, What program do I use to view the pictures? It's Figma. It's like a design tool. I think it's free. I used to use it when I was a UX designer. What do you think of the technique of painters like Edmund Tarbell, Gamel, painting without drawing the contours and watching the mass build up? I love that stuff. That's how I tend to paint. Actually, is I am more of a mass focused painter. So So what I'm recommending here is like sort of the opposite, which is a linear way of practicing drawing. And I guess the whole point of like maybe I can summarize the point of the entire thing what I've been talking about is that I think we can maximize our time spent in drawing if we focus more on a linear way of drawing and spend the time if we're trying to, paint with mass or paint realism, spend that time with black and white paint. So these are two different ways of drawing. One is with grisaille and a full range of value. And Speed talks about when we're painting in mass to set up a sort of a strong light like we have here, where we have a pretty distinct light and shadow pattern, and work those out with oil paint. I think oil paint is a much better medium than I would say even better than charcoal for drawing. And on the other side of things, when we're talking about drawing, like what is a pen or a pencil best at? It's best at line. It's not best at making mass. So why don't we use the instrument for what it's made for, which is line. And line is about articulation. It's about form. It's about 3D thinking. It's about conceptual thinking. Painters like Ong and particularly were particularly interested in form and line. Is it useful to change techniques depending on the subject? It's an interesting question. Is it useful to change the technique depending on the subject? I think so. Yeah, I think so. Trying to think of sometimes I will do a linear drawing if I'm before doing the painting. If I'm unsure of where I'm going, or maybe I'm intimidated by the expression or the perspective or something. I also like to work with these drawings first often for my paintings because I can work out a poetry in them that I can't that I don't get as often when I'm starting with paint. And I think because when I'm starting with paint, there's something of a literalism that happens because we have the full range of value and because we have the varying brush sizes, we can copy masses and forms a little more accurately. Whereas with the drawing material, the line affords a little bit more of this iteration where I can try a line over and over again quickly that you can't do quite as much with oil paint. Like it doesn't allow for this iteration of contour, trying again and again and again and again until you get it right, unless you're like scraping it out, which takes longer. So I feel like I get a little bit more poetry in the drawing when I start with the drawing first, then I can transfer it and hopefully maintain that poetry in the painting. And I'll often just look at the drawing when painting and try not to look at the reference as much, so that I don't lose the whatever sort of the vibe I'm feeling there. Because that's the real danger of working with photographs, is making it look like a photograph or getting too accurate. This is something I don't want. I don't want a super high amount of accuracy. That's like, it's really boring to me. There's nothing more boring than that. So I'm always trying to find and search for a poetry, and I think this is important for students if you're working for photographs. Not to push it too much. We don't want to like use style as a crutch. We can find like some clever style. You can see that happens sometimes. A student will find some clever style, and it can sort of mask a lot of drawing problems, and they can become attached to that clever style and never really move past them, learn past them, and all that. So I think that covers it. It was fun. I like talking about these. I hope you guys got some stuff out of it. Like I said earlier, online classes start this Saturday and Sunday. Otherwise, I hope to see you guys around. I'll try to do more of these, and let me know if you have any ideas for things you'd like me to talk about. We got important last question, so let's talk about it real quick. I don't want to spam you. I made a monochrome work as you showed, a portrait. Now should I glaze this work thinly in grisaille, or do I need to add a new thick layer? Depends, Why not? Why not? Try it. Why not? Yeah, try it. Or, I don't want to give you the or, because then I feel like I'm undermining the whole try it thing. The only reason I hesitate is if you're doing a monochrome study in oil, we have a different mindset maybe if our end goal is for it to be in color, or our end goal is it to be just a monochrome study in itself. So I would encourage you to at least do some of these monochrome oil studies with no goal in mind for color later, only for the pure joy of making the monochrome as beautiful as you can. That's the only reason I hesitate in saying to add the color. But the ones that I would add the color to would usually be the ones that were kind of failures. But my goal with these monochrome studies are to make them as good as possible without any color, and not rely on the crutch of color to sort of give them a pat on the back and say you did good. Color phase. I think you're correcting. Maybe corrected something in there. Well, anyway, gotta go, guys. Thank you so much. All right, we keep getting questions. I'll answer questions if we got them. So, what oil paint brands do you like? I like the oil paint brands that are bound in linseed oil. So, any of them that are bound in linseed oil, I can give you the general idea of Rublev and Williamsburg are my two main guys, and then Michael Harding. So these are I pretty much almost only use Michael Harding, Williamsburg, Rublev. Gamblin is like the lower end of the, I would say, the quality. They just have a little bit too much filler for my taste. I sometimes use Old Holland. They have quite a bit of some kind of filler wax or something that makes it very stiff. I believe Vasari is linseed oil, but I've never actually used them. Who else are linseed oil based? Michael or M. Graham, which is walnut oil based. I would use them as well. That's the only exception of the linseed oil. Just because I paint in layers, I prefer linseed oil. Makes a much stronger film. If I was painting Alla Prima, I wouldn't care as much, and you can use any paint you want. I know they're fancy, it sucks, but the only for whatever reason the linseed oil brands are the expensive ones. So like Gamblin and M. Graham are the only two that are more reasonable. So I would stick with those really, if you can do it. And if you can't afford those, then 100% use like Winton or student grade paint. It's totally fine. I'm not a snob about using them. They're not that different. They're really not that different. Like it's these minute details that once you've been painting for 5 years, you'll start to notice. Can I ask too? What you got? Meat, you got the question? I might be typing. This will be the last question, and then I gotta really roll. I usually do pastels, soft pastels. Can you suggest how to preserve them? Well, that's not really my area of expertise. I believe I would look into casing spray. Um, that would be sort of my first line of inquiry is casein, like the milk protein casein. That's what I would look at first and see if that preserves them. I'm not sure that you actually even need to spray anything over them. I would probably lean towards glass over them, maybe, if you don't need to spray them. And that's going to be the best way to probably preserve them without adding some sort of chemical on top. Check out Hope Gangloff. Hope Gangloff. Let's see, for line work, I'm always look Hope Gangloff. Yeah, these are cool. Kind of like gives me sort of Egon Schiele kind of vibe. You know who I love a lot is, I'm not even sure if this is appropriate to show people. Can I show other artists on a live stream? Is this appropriate? I don't see why not. I guess I'll find out when I get the angry message. Dan Quintana, just absolutely brilliant in his line work. I'm say this as someone that I'm not into comic book stuff. It's just never really done it for me. But this guy, man, his line work is absolutely off the charts. Just look at that. Just insane. I just can't even. So this is a guy I look at for line a lot, and I think you should too. Who's another person I would look at for line? I'm trying to think of, is there another person? No, I really only look at him. Like, they're just it's so, like, for me, too. Like, this is, like, there's something kind of, like, edgy and psychological and just, like, about the line itself. It's, like, a chaotic line. And I have, like, a chaoticness to me as well. I'm not a very orderly, like, perfected line kind of person, so he's using that squiggly, somewhat more squiggly, broken line. There isn't this like, there's a lot more clean line in this one, but even still, there's this jaggedness to it. Yeah, it's so sick. And like, this guy can paint too. He's an oil painter and he paints these super highly realistic things. But you're going to tell me there's not a connection between line and painting like this? No way. All that line work is infusing this painting here. We do not get this without all his line work. It just doesn't happen. Where's my chat window? I need to figure out how to keep the chat window somewhere. Kind of looks like Eliza. Yeah, a little bit, I think. I think I know who you're talking about, Eliza. Or Lisa. Nice photo, I don't see any bargs. What do you mean? I do look at Barg for the part 3, like I was saying earlier. The part 3 of the book, I do look at his for line. I love that line. That's a much more orderly line, but there's a brokenness to it that I can appreciate. I mean, look at that. You telling me that's not completely out of control? So I wouldn't want to for myself to be like, so like there is a, and there is like this lives in the comic book universe. It's not exactly where I want to go with my paintings. I don't want to work in the comic book universe. But that's not saying I can't take some ideas, borrow some ideas, steal like an artist, which is funny. That quote has been attributed to like so many different people. It's like attributed to Pablo Picasso, but it wasn't necessarily him. It was a bunch of other people before him, like Thoreau and like others have been attributed to this quote. Steal like an artist or some version of it. So it's like they're all just stealing the quote from each other, which is like this weird, interesting, fractal sort of irony. But yeah, look at that. It's crazy. We're just going to look at Dan Quintana all day. Why not? I mean, another guy we can look at, though, actually, I know I said I was going to leave, but this is just, like I said, I'm kind of like a pure chaos kind of person. Odd Nerd Drum drawing. Let's see if we can take a look at one of his drawings here and get an idea of like a kind of a different or another language of line, which is this squiggly line. This more squiggly line is creating this more atmospheric look. So instead of the diagonal lines we were talking about, the diagonal hatch marks, he's using a squiggly line as a unifying line overall to bring everything together, and to create this sense of light and shadow and also atmosphere. There are better examples, I feel like, but I just can't quite see them. I see a little bit here. I'm not 100% sure all of these are by Nerdrum, but I think they serve the purpose and what I'm trying to describe. Not quite there. Not quite there either. This is a super cool drawing. I love this, just the simplicity of it. All right, guys, I do got to run. Thank you for attending. See you next time. Make sure to like and subscribe and all that stuff if you haven't already. And we'll see you next time.